Well, hello, everybody, and welcome to another installment of Show to V with Mike G, the show of life, the show of entrepreneurialism, the show of taking it easy, Mezcal and Raicilla. Today's guest is the incredible co-collaborator and creator of Fidencio Mezcal, the importer for La Venenosa, and all those beautiful Durumbes Mezcal. Marks Mr. Arik Torren, great guy, easygoing, and he has shifted the narrative. He has shifted the conversation about Agave Spirits, and he was in Austin recently. We both attended a brilliant tasting of all the mezcals, and we sat out on the porch at Las Perlas in Austin, Texas, and talked about life. So without further ado, I hope you guys enjoyed this great chat with Arik Torren of Fidencio Mezcal.
I like people, I do, and I also I like the downtime as well.
Yeah.
You know, I've been working with people all of my working life. You know, I've been like in restaurants, in bars,
right,
on the promotion or the selling or the education of the brands that I work with. Always with people. And I love it. I'm grateful for it. And it's nice to have some downtime too, as well.
As a kid from Brooklyn, graduated high school there.
Yes.
So was the Aspen bit before going to school at Albany, or was it after?
Oh, yeah. I went to school at Albany after high school in New York, in Brooklyn.
Yeah.
And didn't graduate from there.
Yeah.
I was fortunate enough to have the wisdom of not taking out student loans, and as I was going to school, it was always something that was nagging on me that I really had no personal feeling of this was going to be the gateway to the next part of my life.
Really?
So I never felt that about college or university.
Was there an expectation? So I had some expectation from my folks.
Oh,
they're like,
yeah.
you should go. Yeah. I mean, were they saying, Arik, you got to do this thing,
parents,
man?
Society, you know? It was, it wasn't until I caught up with myself through snowboarding and landed in Aspen and realized that there's a whole other way of approaching your future or your path or yourself than how it was from the perspective of my immigrant parents and that very typical
right, like A plus
path.
B equals. Where did they immigrate? Where did they immigrate from?
From Israel. Yeah. They met here in the United States, so they both immigrated separately. But obviously a lot in common.
Of course.
Yeah.
Was snowboard? I skied.
Uh-huh.
I'm almost a little embarrassed because I should have been snowboarding with as much punk rock as I listened to.
It's the same thing. No, like I grew up as a skier, but when I was spending time doing it, I gravitated towards snowboarding because I was able to interpret the mountain more from my own perspective on a snowboard than on skis. You know,
really?
It felt like more. Well, back in those days, it was really in the beginning or before the beginning, before the beginning of shortening skis and having the parabolics and having the technological response from what we learned from snowboarding. To make turns. And for me, like, I was never into the the speed of it, although I love the speed, but it was more about
Your eyes just lit up, by the way.
it was more about the exploration, the nooks and crannies on the mountain.
Yeah.
And I connected to that more with the snowboard. But I always, I think of it as one and the same. It's, sliding down the mountain with nature and friends, getting a rush, and having physical and, dare I say, spiritual moments throughout.
I think being ensconced in nature is always spiritual.
Yeah.
Getting connected. What did you walk away from? What did you think that you wanted to do in the university? Business management, hospitality?
No, I actually would have, that would have been both would have been very beneficial for me. I to be honest, there was a lot of people around me. It was a very highly regarded state school that a lot of people went to with like the point of not getting an education, it seemed to me, but more of to get a degree, to go into the workforce and use that degree as a springboard into whatever you got through your working career.
Gotcha.
And so there was a lot of like sociology majors and psychology majors and things like that in that school. And there were sciences and this and that, but and I felt just detached from that type of education. So what I wound up doing was taking things that I felt comfortable with real learning, or real learning for me, which wound up being sciences. Then I was like, oh, let me follow this path of like pharmacy. That's a really tangible thing. I like learning chemistry and biology.
Yeah.
And I started doing that. And then I did an internship in a pharmacy, and I was like, so on my next winter session, I'm going to go out to Summit County and do a couch tour and get a ski pass. And came back, finished my last semester of the school that I did, worked the summer, saved a bunch of money, drove out to Aspen where I knew one guy, slept on his couch with the thought of, well, if I like it here, I'll stay, because I knew in Summit County you couldn't make any money. In Aspen, there was a lot more opportunity to earn.
Yeah.
And the mountains are great, and I didn't know about the people, but I quickly learned. But the thought that was in the back of my head, well, if it doesn't really connect here, I'll just keep going to Squaw, because that's where the big giant dumps are, and they get tons and tons of snow. And my first week there was it was a week before Halloween, and then it's off season, so my idea of getting there early and getting a job was just totally stupid, because there were no jobs.
Yeah.
It's just mud. And but I get the Double Diamond, this famous, amazing bar in Aspen, live music, and it's Halloween, and this band was playing, and I looked back and I realized that everybody there, of course, was local, and it's about 350 people, and every single person was totally connected with like 250 of the 300 people there. So it was
was it a band I know?
Zuba.
Zuba? What is
Zuba. It was a Colorado, Denver band.
What year are we talking?
Cool. 94, I think.
Oh, yes.
Yeah.
That was a good year.
Yeah. They were a woman lead. I think there was flute and violin, but like jam band and funk. So it really touched on all the sweet spots of having a party. They were a party band, and everybody was there and having a good time. And I'm like, yeah. And of course, everyone was in costume.
Sure.
So, and I was like in the lamest costume, because everybody was really giving it up.
You got it. What was it?
My costume was like slapped together. I had a hockey jersey from a hockey team I played on, like a club team, and they were called the Flash. And with the sub name of Bamfs, the badass motherfuckers.
Nice, good. That's
and
good.
so I got like, I don't know, it was some version. I got like a clown afro, and I kind of turned it into like a Snoop Dogg costume somehow.
And a hockey
he turned out, it was.
Yeah, that seems to make
it
sense.
worked. It was good enough. But there were people like fully decked out into really.
Did you catch any shit like going to pursue the mountain, trying to connect with nature? Were your folks like, "What the fuck are you?"
Nobody.
doing?
Well, I think I was confident enough in that I was able to express that this was the right thing for me.
Got it.
And my mom trusted me in that, but she was really, really uncomfortable with it, and it was totally alien for her. You know, it was not something that she could relate to.
Yeah.
She learned from me, and I learned from myself, and I learned from her. Of course, one of the biggest influence in my life is my mother.
Yeah. It was a good experience though, being out there.
Yeah, I lived there for 5 years, and the only reason why I left is because I quickly on realized, oh, like I want to open up a restaurant or a bar here, and I wasn't able to like stitch together a project.
Yeah.
So I came home.
Back to
my
Brooklyn.
sisters started having kids, and I came back to New York.
Did that part appeal? Like, so at some point, for some of us,
Yep.
either we create a project or we create a child. You know what I mean?
Well,
Was the family piece? Was
the
that
family piece was it's always important for me. I'm very close with my family, even though I'm the one that's always the furthest away.
right?
But yeah, it was very important, and I didn't. I was concerned for myself. I'm like, well, if I continue to stay here in Aspen, I don't know if I'll be able to carve out, the next step of what I would like to do,
Right.
which was to be an entrepreneur. I always knew that I was had to be doing a business, my own.
Did that come? Was your mom? Was your father?
They're all teachers.
All teachers.
Yeah, they're all
high school teachers.
My father's a bio teacher, college, and my mom was a private school teacher.
No way.
Second grader.
So
yeah.
what is this kind of impetus to be a businessman, an ambitious guy?
It's just how I felt the pieces would make sense.
Yeah. So you're back in New York, have some hospitality experience.
I'm back in. Yeah, I had really cool hospitality experience. When I got out to Aspen, I got a job one that provided a ski pass in a good basic restaurant. That was cool. And then one of those first winters, I went out to dinner with some friends. All friends are new and exciting when you're alone in a new place at that age. And we went to this restaurant called Campo de Fiori. It had just opened up. It's kind of it was totally blown away and totally inspired. And I went to them the next day and I said, I want a job here. And they said, all we have is busboy. And I was like, oh man, I'm really not expecting to be a busser. But I took the job because I knew I needed to be in that place. And 2 weeks later, Adam, the bartender, broke his femur on a tree and had to go back home to Miami.
Wait, hang on. He broke his femur on a tree?
Yeah, he wrecked. And
bike?
No, skiing.
Skiing?
Yeah. I wrapped it around a tree. And, they were like, do you know how to bartend? I'm like, of course I know how to bartend. I have this whole list of fake jobs that I could tell you about. And it was the greatest learning training grounds. It was a very intense restaurant, fairly high dollar, high energy, and they did 5 turns a night.
Damn.
It was this great, amazing mix of really high-end clientele and burn and turn.
Dude.
And it was crazy.
Good money for you?
It was good money. Yeah.
Good time of your life, probably mid-20s at this point, right?
Yeah. I stayed there for 3.5 years. I quit because at some point it's like I was one of the people that were doing way more, disproportionately more work than others, a month later, wherever I went to was nothing special, and they asked me to come back because it was. And
Did you do it?
yeah, of course, that was my family. That was where I worked for almost 4 years.
At this point, like being in the hospitality industry, slinging drinks, which is very lucrative, apparently.
It was good.
Again, are you getting farther away from that ambitious guy that wants to start his own thing, or are you becoming closer to being able to start your own thing?
I wasn't getting closer, but it was becoming It was growing. I was yearning for it more and more, and I had always more ideas of what I thought would be a good idea and would be good in practice, and I feel like over the years I've definitely had a lot of these ideas and have been able to put a few of them into play.
Yeah,
I feel like looking back at it, a number of the ones that didn't materialize.
Yeah.
Would have been good. Yeah.
Okay, so we're probably 15 years past them. What's one of the ideas that got away?
This guy Ed Witt. This is me working in a restaurant in Manhattan called the Mermaid Inn. Also a kind of a legendary place.
Yeah.
And the chef of this place called Il Buco, which is totally a legendary place, his name is Ed. He used to come in all the time, and we became close. And we decided we're going to try and open up a restaurant. And we had this idea of having a restaurant of doing whole animal and having a butcher.
No way.
In 2003.
That's so Portland.
And, well, it hadn't really. It was
not a thing yet.
Really big. It didn't. The term like farm to table didn't really exist. I hadn't heard of it at that time.
Right.
And we were talking about it and pitching it to financial people, and people were looking at us like, that's the kookiest idea. Like, that's just not going to make sense. And then flash to like 4 years later, it was the beginning of many people doing it because, you know.
Well, it prevents waste. It makes sense, yeah.
If you're serving food and you connect that to sourcing food, then that makes it a richer experience.
Right.
It's just more beautiful.
Did you ever get into the restaurant biz as an owner?
No.
Never did. That was the idea that got away?
Well, yeah, I guess that was one of them. That was definitely one of them. Yeah, that was the one that I fully wrote the business plan for and sketched it out and stuff.
So when does the Fidencio project come to mind? How many years after this full farm to table thing?
In what year was this? In 2006, I was hired as an director of operations of a restaurant that had not yet opened, and I was brought in there as like the expert because the owner was a trust funder and the chefs had never done an opening before. We're very talented.
Sure.
Everybody's and stylish, and I implemented everything, and it was really going to be a cool thing. And their pay was paid well. And then a week later, after it was open, I was fired.
What the
totally
fuck? For what?
Fucked over. I wasn't fired for anything. It was just because I was expensive, and they totally played me. Not they, the owner. You know, he was the one.
They're not still around, are they?
Huh?
They're not still around, are they?
No.
Good.
But I still get phone calls from all the vendors that I connected to, like, you know, the POS guy and the garbage collection people and the pest control. They're like, we need our money. We haven't got paid. You know? I mean, that's pretty much ended. But that happened for years. I was getting those phone calls. I'm sorry, you know, I brought you into a situation, and
but you got screwed too, so everybody can
I got
commit.
screwed first. So, you know, so it was a little of that. But when I left Aspen and moved back to New York, the general manager of a place called Ajax Tavern in Aspen, this guy Chris Correo, he was a GM of a place in Manhattan called the Red Cat, which really changed my life. I went in there for a job, and I got the job, and it was the coolest, most special, one of those just magical places to work, people to work with.
Yeah.
And that's where I met my business partner, Amy. She was bartending along with me. And actually, she hired me because she didn't want to bartend anymore because, it's maybe the same or less money than a server and 60% more work. So, but they wouldn't let her go onto the floor because it was hard to replace a bartender in that So anyway, she effectively hired me. The most amazing people, everybody at the Red Cat, you know who you are. I have total love for all of
Academy
you.
Award speech right now.
Yes, and then, so when I got fired at that place, Amy, this had been years later, she had been living in Oaxaca because she, in her travels, came upon this place in Puerto Escondido on the coast of Oaxaca, where there's a beautiful hotel in disrepair, but amazing property. And she came back, fundraised for it, and that's her business still.
No way.
So when I called her, I'm like, I was so mad I got fucked over. And she's like, honey, forget about that. It's off, they just had bought small apartments next to the property next to them. And they were not planning, or they were in the on season, so they weren't going to be doing anything with it. So she's like, listen, come down. There's no AC, but you got a place to stay. And I went down there, and I remember clear detail what happens. I get into the room, and she comes running in, and she's like, so good to see you. And then she goes, I can't talk. 5 weddings in 4 weeks. I'm mommy of the bride like this. And she's, hands to the top of her eyes. And she's like, but wait, I want you to meet some people. You want to fly to Oaxaca, to the city, after the weekend. And we get in the plane. It was a 3-seat Cessna.
Oh, dude.
And
was it stomach turning?
No, I was loving it.
Good, yeah.
So we were cool.
Oh, that's right.
And she's like, we're going to do a mezcal. And I was like, oh. And at the time, I had a couple that were inspiring.
Yeah.
And more that I didn't enjoy. And in all cases, like many people in those days, and many people, even now at the journey, didn't have an understanding of, it's 100% agave, but is it Blue Weber? Because I knew about tequila, but I didn't understand what made mezcal. And so that's when I started my journey. And then we went through Oaxaca, through the mountains, and saw a lot of production, and eventually met Enrique Jimenez, who in Mazatlan, and he's our producer and partner in Fidencio.
And he has an engineering or chemistry degree, right?
Yeah. So he's a 4th generation mezcalero and farmer, Zapotec, and a unique guy, and he was the first person in his family to go to university. And he got an industrial chemical engineering, which we could call that the distiller's degree.
Absolutely.
And he's a creative person and a tinkerer. And when we met him, he has 70% finished building out enough to open the lights and open the stills at his palenque across the street from his father's palenque.
No way.
So he was branching out on his own. And the timing was really cool because we were like, hey, I'm interested. And he's like, I'm ready. And I'm, he was untethered.
Yeah.
And then like 2 months later, he sends me a first test batch. And I was like, oh, this is really good. And then it was 2.5 more years until we figured out how to actually make a brand, make a company, and actually launch the product.
But it was the first one that stuck.
It was the one.
Brilliant idea.
Yeah, it was the first one that stuck. And when we launched Fidencio in 2009, it was a pretty significant year for mezcal because in that year, we were one of 11 brands in the United States, and 3 brands launched that year: Fidencio, Ilegal, and Sombra, and they're all still around.
Oh yeah.
And everybody, them and myself and the guys before us, have influenced a lot of people and touched a lot of people, and shared and educated, and this category we were 11 brands in the United States. Last I heard, it was like 190. So I'm sure in
Yeah.
in the foreseeable future we're going to be at 400 brands.
Easily.
Huh?
How does it easily going to
Yeah,
be 400?
yeah, yeah.
All right. So how does it feel, in a way, being part of the first wave of mezcal and that mezcal movement?
I mean, it feels cool. It feels wonderful. It feels satisfying because so many of those people, or not those people, but the people around me,
Yeah.
were totally. I would completely explain what I saw it would be, and I think I know that I had a lot of helpful insight from being in the restaurant and bar industry.
Yeah.
And that was huge for me, and that gave me the confidence to say this is real, because what I saw was beautiful flavors and profound history.
Sure.
So at that time in 2007, 8, we launched in 2009. I mean, people had already come around to their, to really being gravitating towards and needing and yearning provenance and stories and traditional flavors. Whether in 2009, you could have even get in Long Island wineries where I come from.
Yeah.
You could get, there were people producing Blaufränkisch and Tokai Friulano, where just 5 years before that, it was only Chardonnay Merlot. So I think if you use that as an analogy, like, it was really in that short period where everybody went from like a Coca-Cola palette to something where we are now, where we've really still, as a society, like really changing and really open.
Yeah.
We've opened a lot. And that's big for mezcal, obviously.
Absolutely, because the market's saturated in every kind of way. Food saturated, TV saturated, music, blah, blah, blah. So self-discovery and self-identification is something that brings people to mezcal. Because mezcal, on the whole, now there are some brands that want to beat you over the head with it and say it's your new favorite thing, we're a trusted friend, whatever. Fine. I don't have the money for that. But many people coming into their own as adults, as creative powers, towards mezcal. And that is not a bad fucking team to be playing for. To create like independent thinkers, people that want to come into their own.
Yeah, I like the way you put it, Mike. Yeah, I wouldn't have put it in those words, but I totally agree with you.
Yeah.
And so much more in that there's every consumer, every person who's drinking mezcal and engaging with it has their own story. But it's clear that as a group, it's really resonating as a category to a larger and growing group of people.
Did you ever think, I'm sure you had no idea how the category of mezcal would grow, but Fidencio in itself, multiple SKUs now, almost 10 years into the game. Do you guys have an exit strategy? Do you have an exit strategy? I heard some stuff, but I don't know if it's true or not.
We are firmly in our strategy, which is we're going to keep on producing. We all, like, for the past 5 years, I would say, our growth is strictly like keeping up with our property, because we're primarily Espadín, even though we do have other expressions.
Right.
And that is, all of our Espadín is from our estate, so it's not sourced outside that. And so we've been at sort of that max plus whatever foresight was in the growth of farming 10 years prior that we're getting to realize over the years now, 7-12% growth. So Fidencio, we're not really, it's not really, that's the plan. We're going to keep on doing it.
Yeah.
But what that means is it can't be a colossal, ginormous brand. There's not enough liquid to be made in that way. But we don't compromise. Like I said, we don't buy liquid. Do things that would go outside of Enrique's ethos and my ethos. So for me, growth and my growth was my opportunity for that was as an importer. And then that's when I got to that next stage for me in 2014.
Cerveceria? How do you say the Allende?
Allende.
Allende.
From San Miguel de Allende.
See, I'm a white guy in Texas. I'm in Austin, obviously.
Yeah.
But this is an amazing opportunity.
Well,
Some of the stuff you brought up.
first is with my brother Esteban, and launched his brand La Venenosa,
Yes.
and brought Raicilla to the United States through his vision.
So, all right. No one's heard of Raicilla in the States at this point, right? You create
I think
category.
7 people heard of Raicilla at that time. Yeah, and it was
Y'all
all
worked
from a
at,
suitcase.
There's a very tight-knit crew.
Yeah.
It's completely underground. The demo tape circulating. The
Yeah,
rest
exactly.
What compelled you to create a category?
Well, I wouldn't say I created a category, but I launched that category. It was just the obvious thing because, for me, it's the flavor of Agave Spirits are so amazing, and I get excited by diversity of experiences within that. So it was a no-brainer that these things, these Raicillas, these Agave Spirits from Jalisco are through for all the reasons, are opening up my palate to completely, again, another set of all new experiences. So that's really thrilling for me. So I'm sure I think of it, I get, you get blinded like maybe others, like, oh, everybody thinks the way I do. So, I'll just bring in this and everybody's going to want it. And it's going to be that easy because it's so obviously good. And,
obviously.
Maybe the trajectory wasn't in sync with that, but the results are there. We have it in a lot of markets with a lot of people, and there's a lot of people passionate about the category and the brand, and we've all worked together.
It is.
And Esteban has introduced producers to other brand developers and owners, and the category is going to grow and grow, and it's just going to be another part of the agave spectrum and the story.
So this is how I look at it. You went to Aspen, you sought a little high in the mountains. You know what I mean? A little bit of edge, a little bit of fury. That kind of propensity and that kind of edge and that kind of buzz doesn't end. So Raicilla is punk rock. It is unbridled. It is beautiful, but you have to dig deep through what are unfamiliar flavors. So in a way, maybe you're kind of the guy discovering these bands and saying, I'm going to bring it to the forefront of American culture. Now, I know these guys do this. I don't want to give you too much credit, right? But
well, yeah. But I do really, really, really love and almost like, I don't know, fantasize about your analogy because it reminded me that right when I came back from my Aspen, the thing that I thought I was going to do, which I tried in one moment, I tried and just didn't really, I didn't know how to figure it out.
Yeah.
But I wanted to be an A&R guy, and I wanted to be
exactly.
I'm like, so thanks for reminding me.
You are the A&R guy for the Raicilla genre, man. You did it, but you found your own pathway to bringing these bands, these labels, these marks in, and you've impacted culture in that way. That's not a bad thing.
No. I guess that's thinking of it that way, it becomes satisfying again because I certainly didn't become anybody's A&R guy for a band. So I was like a week back in New York, and I walk into this club, and I heard it was just this amazing female vocalist playing over like this unbelievable live drum and bass group. Yeah. And it was just like an American soul singer with this Austro-German drum and bass maniacs. And I was like, guys, we're going to do this. You're amazing. And they're like, okay, cool. So I call up a couple of people that I know in business. They're like, all right, we'll try to set up a meeting. And then 9 days later, they broke up. And I'm like, oh, okay.
But you're carrying the torch, so to speak.
But that was definitely something I saw myself doing. And
I mean,
I had that outlet definitely with, exploring projects with Agave and connecting with people.
how many years later are we talking now since you started to bring Venenosa? You said 4 years in Texas, right?
We launched it, what day is it today? We launched it yesterday, 4 years ago.
No shit, so it's almost the anniversary.
We launched it on the 23rd of September. 24th, yesterday, 4 years ago.
No way.
La Venenosa. Well, that was the first seminar event I did. So maybe the product had been in within less than a week of that time. Yeah.
Dude, I can't believe we're here almost 4 years later talking about this thing.
Yeah. And it was a bummer, that event, because I thought everybody was going to show up. But instead, at another venue, a very awesome venue, it was like 3 hotshot bourbon master distillers. It was at New York Distilling, Alan Katz's distilling, and Dave Pickerel and 2 other bourbon hotshot masters all were doing this mega master class.
Oh, no.
And basically nobody showed up for my racing class. I was like, God damn it. And of course there was no intention to, there was nothing like that. But hey, man, I was a bunch of heavy hitters over there.
Yeah.
And my Facebook game was not strong enough.
All right. So, think about it 4 years later. You're here with Esteban. You're at Las Perlas. You're talking about what I see. You're talking about these mezcals, which we'll talk about the Rumbas in a second because we're sipping the Tamaulipas, which is fucking remarkable. But reflecting back, taking the mind, relaxing just a little bit, how have these past 4 years been? You feel good about it?
I do. And I have a lot of ups and downs. And I've learned about things about myself.
Yeah.
And I've learned about some things that are documented and written that entrepreneurs, independent business people go through and experience in trials and tribulations. And I found moments where I relate and victim of and persevere through and those kind of things. And I'm totally grateful. Yeah.
Has love changed your life a bit? I know I'm a huge softy guy. I'm an empath. I've taken some Cosmopolitan magazine quizzes, and I apparently am an empath. But you got married last year. That's gotta make it good, right?
Yeah. Amazing. And yes, Courtney and that love has really been just the greatest thing in my life. And we started dating 5 years ago, but I've known her for 2 months after I launched Fidencio. She moved to New York to do this place called La Biblioteca, the largest agave program still in New York, where she moved to New York to be the librarian, the tequila librarian. And I did a cold call, and that's how I met her. And my company's 2 months old. And I'm like, oh, she's really hot. Do I go for the girl or go for the sale? She had a boyfriend at the time, and I had a girlfriend at the time, so it wasn't like a thing. But we became friends, and I was always very, very enamored by her, and I can't tell you, I'm the luckiest man.
I think that's lovely. It's circling back to us both being lucky on this night, man, to love, right? But the reason that you're here in Austin, you've got these amazing products in your portfolio, but tonight was all about the Rumbas.
Yes.
I sipped, along with you and Esteban, 6 mezcales from multiple states. Now, this is the thing, too. There's an AR. Now, I know the Rumbas, in terms of a brand, isn't necessarily your brand, but you're deeply invested, passionate about it. But it's kind of like the A&R guy going to Nebraska, going to Idaho and saying there is fucking talent here. I am going to find it.
I think in that, in that case, it's that project is partnership with Esteban Morales, Sergio Mendoza, and Ivan Robles, and it's those guys who are putting together and searching and finding the people for that project, and I'm fortunate enough to get to tell their story and share it.
Dude.
And I like their story a lot.
I love those guys.
Yeah.
I talked to Esteban about Sergio in a little bit. Like, he's a romantic guy. He's a playwright in a way, right? But we sip through these 6, right? So
Esteban or Sergio?
Sergio.
Yeah.
Oh, man.
Yeah.
No, it did. Lovely guy.
Esteban's more of the art, the graphics and the artist, and Sergio is the literary. Wow, they're both literary.
He's a huge fan of Tennessee Williams. That was something I learned about Sergio, which I thought was brilliant.
Right.
Prototypical love, repressed homosexuality, and the French Quarter of New Orleans. So, but taken through this narrative, right? So we sip through 6. Oaxaca, it's great. It was a blend of Tobalán, Espadín, 70-30. Wonderful, right?
Yeah.
Cool. Kind of what you'd expect. Now, not to say it's boring, but all right, this is great mezcal at a good proof, at a good price. Okay, but then we venture a little darker. This is into the older movies of Stanley Kubrick, the darker stuff, right? The Spielberg 1942 shit that no one knows existed. And we go to San Luis Potosí, which is one of the most remarkable, one of the most unique mezcals I've ever had. So just tell me about how you feel about that mezcal when you sip it.
Well, when I think of that mezcal, the first thing I think of is Courtney, my wife, because as soon as we all got, open up the Christmas gifts and taste the samples, of course she's with me, and immediately that's her favorite. And I think of her a lot when I think of that mezcal. It's powerful, it's pretty, it's unforgettable, it's different.
Sure.
And in the set, they're all that way. They're all unique and independent, and that's part of the nature of doing a project like that, of like working with different people in different places and insisting on making choices that, in the case of Derumbes, are traditional representations and iconic expressions of these places.
Right, so like the quintessential way to enjoy mezcal in a particular state. I mean, I get what you guys are kind of, perhaps what you're trying to do. It's like, what style most reflects that state? Is that accurate?
Yeah, very much so. Very much so. Yeah.
I know, and you paused for the picture of this pretty No, but so, do you listen to the Beatles at all?
I don't spend too much time listening to the Beatles, but I don't know, it's impossible to not hear the Beatles.
There's that. Is there a band that you are very much into that has a nice catalog of records that are changing faces, changing styles from record to record?
Ooh. Tom Waits.
Oh, yeah, there you go.
For a while, for me, I was really into like the whole progression of the George Clinton Funkadelic Parliament stuff.
What I'm getting at is that it's the same artist, kind of, but we're traversing state to state to state 6 times over. And each of these things are reimagined. They are reformed. They're so different and they're so unique in this portfolio.
What stitches it together are the brand owners, are Esteban, Sergio, and Ivan, and the choices that they make and to fit their ideal of their brand through that. So that's what makes some of the connection to the products, and where you'll definitely, in Mezcal and Spirits, see a house style by a producer of different varietals, whatever. You could feel that house style because there's every reason. The water is the same, or the microbial environment,
right.
equipment. Here, all that's very, very varied, but what's the same is the ideology and sort of the palette of the people.
Sure.
And you feel a house style in a much broader and more abstract way, but it's there, and I feel that.
Dude, I love this Indiana Jones pursuit of mezcal. Artifacts from these different regions within the same place, uncovering flavors that people have not yet previously been exposed to. I'm so happy you're working with Victory, because those are the best people in Texas. If you guys don't know, fine. You'll find out soon enough. These are the guys to share the passion and to share these amazing textured.
They're brilliant
mezcal.
guys, and their portfolio is amazing.
Dude, there's no better portfolio. You got amazing label mates in this place.
Happy
Texas.
about it.
So we're sipping Tamaulipas. This was an incredible mezcal. This is the, oh man, what kind of, I can't recall the particular varietal here.
Oh, it's a blend. It's an ensemble of 4 agave, Americana.
Oh, Funkiana, right?
Funkiana. It's got the funk.
Montana.
Univitata. Americana is the foundation
Sure.
and the largest source of the sugars. And Agave Montana.
Montana.
Yeah. And those 3, not Americana, are found only in Tamaulipas.
That's amazing.
So this is a Tamaulipas mezcal.
We are introduced to a place we can go, but this will transport us
Right
every
on.
single sip. So I got 2 questions left for you.
Cool.
I know you're heading to Dallas probably early in the morning. You're going to do
Yes.
some more of this gospel, spreading the wonderful word in the mezcales. I think about this particular mezcal, this Tamaulipas, the blend of 4, the ensemble. And I think you're anywhere in the world. It doesn't matter where. You're at your favorite mezcaleria in the world, and you're sipping this exact mezcal. If you could have a conversation with anybody, living or deceased, who might you like to just sit next to and just wax poetic with?
I'm really, really enjoying this mezcal with a conversation with Mike G here at Las Perlas. No joke, in Austin, Texas. Seriously, man, thank you. Thank you for the
it's
joyful
been, it's my
conversation.
pleasure.
Appreciate it.
I'll say this.
How do you like that layup?
This is like so Magic and no. So this I'm trying to think Lakers 1990 or 1988 kind of setup.
Best basketball team ever.
Fucking right, dude.
Yeah,
Well, I was living in Detroit though, so I was I
was living in New York, but I saw them live at was it at Coliseum in
Madison?
California?
Oh, yeah.
No, forgot what the arena was, but twice.
Oh, dude.
With the whole team, Rambis, Kareem, Worthy. They're amazing.
Dude.
It was amazing basketball. At a time when basketball was way better than it is now.
Magic.
Sorry.
Oh, yeah. It was a little bit more fun than a little more gritty. People would throw a goddamn punch once in a while.
Inside. It was an inside
Seriously?
game.
Yeah, dude. It was. All right. I digress. But we could talk about 80s basketball all the goddamn
All day long.
So what's next? Well, how many more cities do you have on this tour with?
Well, I try not to do a tour because of my own personal stability and well-being.
Right.
So we'll be in Dallas tomorrow, and on Thursday I come home, touch base. But in this month it is busy, and I'm going to be in Reno, LA, and Minneapolis, and I'm so psyched for all 3 of those trips because of, LA is a big market, and it's been a big market for us, and I really appreciate them. I've never been to Reno for work. I have been there, and everyone tells me that it's like really evolved and really going through a moment, so I'm excited to see it. And I think Minneapolis, we've been working there for a few years, and every time I go there and meet a person and talk to somebody, it's just that it's a really warm and genuine experience, and I love going there. So, but I'm fortunate that I got lucky with a group of distributors, like you mentioned, Victory, that really invest in the brands that I represent and invest in what we do for the other 360 days that I'm not there. And and I'm really grateful to all of them and that beautiful sort of mindful artisanal distributor network that I'm fortunate to work with. It's really special people. I wouldn't be nowhere without them.
It's amazing. And I don't say this often. Well fucking done.
Thank you.
And these are brilliant marks. You have the coolest marks. The things that set the trends. You know what I mean? And like, who cares, right? But you found the right bands. They're going to be successful. You got your legacy, man.
I like listening to the music, that's for sure.
And Boston More Than a Feeling's playing right now. This is a hell of a way to go out. Some more mezcal, I'm sure, but such a pleasure chatting finally. Met you a couple years ago. We'll have to keep in touch for sure.
Absolutely.
Talk soon, Mike. Yeah? Thank you. So there we have it. It's a great chat with Arik Torren of Fidencio Mezcal. And I want to ask everybody just one question. Where really would we be with Raicilla and multi-state mezcales if it wasn't for Arik's efforts? I think this is not a rhetorical question. I think we should all ask ourselves and see if we would be as far along. Some of these partnerships he's had with Esteban, who's also been on the show, they really create beautiful products, but they create products that make you inquisitive about as to where they come from, as to how they're made. And I think this is a really, really interesting piece of Arik's journey. And not to mention, he's a super nice, warm, fun guy, and it's always great to see him in town. So Arik, thank you so much for sitting down with me and chatting about your beautiful products and your very, very clever life. So everybody, I wanted to make one announcement. My apologies for not having released an episode in a few weeks. I've been hard at work on season 1 and now season 2 of 3 Minute Tasting, where a co-host and I review a single spirit in the vast world of spirits. And we try to give you an idea as to what to buy and as to what not to buy. I'll post a link. It's up on YouTube, and there's lots of jokes along the way. So thanks everybody for listening to Show to V with Mike G. No matter how many times you're watching Beat Bobby Flay and you're starting to get the radio announcer voice in your head, or if you doom going to weddings because, God, how many people are getting married just this month, please keep dancing.